The interior of the 2024 Maybach S-Class was quieter than a library. It smelled of hand-stitched Napa leather and the faint, ozonic scent of the climate control system. I sat in the back seat, responding to emails on a tablet that controlled assets worth more than the GDP of a small island nation. My name is Arthur Pendleton. To the public, I'm a ghost. My holding company, Apex Ion, owns the skyscrapers, the logistics fleets, and the tech infrastructure of half the city. But I don't do magazines. I don't do interviews. I prefer the shadows. I prefer to let my money scream while I whisper. We're 10 minutes out, Mr. Pendleton, the driver said. His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Julian. He was a good-looking kid. 26 years old. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled hair, and a smile that he practiced in the mirror every morning. I paid him $80,000 a year to drive me, keep his mouth shut, and maintain my fleet of exotic cars. Thank you, Julian, I said, not looking up. Take the scenic route. I'm not ready to go home yet. Trouble with the missus? Julian asked. It was a bold question. Too bold for an employee. I looked up then. Julian was smirking. A tiny, arrogant tilt of his lips. He was wearing a Rolex Submariner. A nice watch. A $10,000 watch. Interesting choice for a driver on a salary. Elena is busy, I said neutrally. She has the autumn gala tonight. She's been planning her outfit for months. Ah, the gala, Julian nodded, his eyes glinting. Big night. Lots of heavy hitters. You going? I'm expected to attend, I said. Though Elena says I cramp her style. Julian chuckled. It was a condescending sound. Well, sir, some women just like the spotlight. You're more of a behind-the-scenes guy. Right? Exactly, I said. Behind the scenes. I watched him. There was a confidence in him lately. A swagger. He drove my Maybach as if he owned it. He adjusted the radio without asking. He wore cologne that was far too expensive. I didn't know it then, but I was looking at the man who was sleeping in my bed while I was closing deals in Tokyo. We pulled up to the gates of my estate. It was a sprawling mansion in the hills, paid for in cash 3 years ago. Keep the car running, Julian, I said as I stepped out. I might need you later. Actually, sir, Julian hesitated, checking his watch. I was hoping to clock out early tonight. I have a date. A very special lady. I paused. I looked at him. A special lady? Yeah. She's high maintenance, you know. Likes the finer things. I promised I'd take her somewhere nice. I smiled. A cold, thin smile. Go ahead, Julian. Take the night off. In fact, take the rolls. The Phantom. It needs to be run. Just have it back by morning. Julian's face lit up like a child on Christmas. The Phantom? Sir, are you serious? Treat her like a queen, Julian. I will, sir. You're the best. He sped off. I watched him go. I wasn't being generous. I was being observant. I wanted to see where he went. And I had a tracker on every single vehicle in my fleet. I walked into the house. It was chaos. Stylists were running back and forth. Elena was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the foyer. My wife. She was breathtaking. She was wearing a red silk gown that hugged every curve, dripping in diamonds that I had bought for our anniversary. She looked like a movie star. She also looked at me like I was the plumber who had just tracked mud onto the carpet. You're late, she snapped, not turning around. She was busy fixing an earring. Hello to you too, Elena, I said. I was working. Always working, she rolled her eyes. Arthur, Look at you. You look like an accountant. Please tell me you aren't wearing that to the gala. I looked down at my suit. It was a bespoke charcoal wool suit from Savile Row. It cost $6,000. But to Elena, it was boring. I thought I would just change my tie, I said. Ugh. Fine. Just, try not to stand next to me during the photos, she said. This is a big night for me, Arthur. The committee chairwoman is going to be there. I need to project vitality. Success. Modernity. And I project stability, she said, making it sound like an insult. You project boredom, Arthur. You're safe. You're the guy who pays the bills. But tonight is about passion. It's about the elite. Now go shower. The limo is coming in 20 minutes. The limo? I asked. I thought Julian was driving us. She froze. Just for a microsecond. A tiny flicker of panic in her eyes. Julian? She laughed nervously. No. Why would we use your driver? He's probably busy. I hired a private service. A stretch limo. It's more festive. I see, I said. Well, that works out. I gave Julian the night off. He said he had a date with a high-maintenance woman. Elena turned away quickly, grabbing her clutch. Did he? Well. Good for him. I hope she's worth it. I went upstairs. I didn't shower immediately. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the GPS tracker for the Rolls-Royce Phantom. The dot was moving fast. It was heading downtown. It stopped at a luxury florist. Then a jewelry store. Then, it started moving toward the gala venue. I frowned. Julian wasn't just taking a girl to dinner. He was going to the same event we were. And then, the realization hit me like a physical blow. Elena's private service wasn't a limo. Julian wasn't dating a stranger. Julian was dating my wife. And worse? She thought he was the rich one. She thought he owned the roles. She thought he was the player. She didn't know he was the guy on my payroll who scrubbed the rims of the car she was about to step into. I sat on the edge of the bed. I felt nausea, then anger, and finally, a cold, terrifying clarity. They were playing me. Both of them. The wife I adored and the employee I trusted. I stood up. I walked into the shower. I washed the day off. When I came out, I didn't put on the boring tie. I put on my tuxedo. I put on the cufflinks that were family heirlooms. And I put on the watch I usually kept in the safe, the Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime. A watch worth more than the entire building Julian lived in. I walked downstairs. Elena was waiting by the door. Finally, she sighed. Let's go. And Arthur. Please. Let me do the talking tonight. You always bore people with your talk about infrastructure. Just, smile and nod. Don't worry, my love, I said. Tonight, I plan to be very, very quiet. I want to watch the show. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum. It was a sea of black ties and designer gowns. We arrived in the rented limo. As we stepped onto the red carpet, Elena immediately let go of my arm. She posed for the photographers, pushing me slightly out of the frame. Go get a drink, Arthur, she whispered. I see the committee chair. I need to schmooze. She disappeared into the crowd. I didn't get a drink. I walked to the balcony overlooking the main entrance. I wanted to see the arrival. 10 minutes later, it happened. My Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the curb. It gleamed under the streetlights, a massive, black beast of luxury. The valet rushed to open the door. Out stepped Julian. He looked incredible, I had to admit. He was wearing a white tuxedo jacket, bold, flashy, and rented. He walked with a swagger that screamed new money. He tipped the valet $100. My money, no doubt. He didn't have a date with him. He walked in solo. I watched from above as he entered the ballroom. The crowd parted for him. People whispered. "Who is that? Is that the crypto guy? Look at that watch." Julian soaked it up. He was playing the role of the mysterious billionaire perfectly. And then, I saw Elena. She was across the room, pretending to listen to a senator's wife. But her eyes were locked on the entrance. When she saw Julian, her face lit up with a look I hadn't seen in years. It was a look of hunger. Of excitement. Of lust. She excused herself and started making her way toward him. They stood close. Too close. Julian leaned in and whispered something in her ear. She threw her head back and laughed, touching his arm intimately. She looked at him like he was the king of the world. I walked down the grand staircase. Slowly. Deliberately. I approached them. Elena saw me coming. Her smile faltered. She whispered something to Julian. Julian turned around. When he saw me, his eyes widened in panic. He hadn't expected me to be here. "Arthur," Elena said, her voice high and brittle. "There you are." I was just mingling. She stepped between us, acting as a buffer. She put a hand on Julian's white tuxedo jacket, claiming him. "Arthur," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I want you to meet someone. This is Julian. He's a visionary investor. He's new to the city, but he's already making huge waves." She looked at Julian with beaming pride. "Julian," she said. "This is Arthur. My husband. He's a consultant." The silence that followed was deafening to me. Julian looked at me. He was sweating. He knew that I knew. He was waiting for me to fire him. But Elena didn't know. She thought she was introducing her rich, exciting lover to her dull, middle-class husband. I smiled. I extended my hand. "A pleasure, Julian," I said. "I've heard so much about your driving force." Julian took my hand. His palm was wet. "Mr. Arthur. Nice to meet you." "Julian has the most amazing collection of cars," Elena bragged, unaware she was digging her own grave. "He drove a Phantom here tonight. A Rolls-Royce. Can you imagine, Arthur? He says he lets his employees drive the Mercedes." I laughed. "Is that so? A Phantom. That's a serious machine. It requires a lot of maintenance." "I take good care of my assets," Julian stammered, his voice cracking. "I'm sure you do," I said, locking eyes with him. "But tell me, Julian. In your line of work, what happens when you get caught taking something that doesn't belong to you?" Elena frowned. "Arthur, don't be rude. You're boring him with your riddles." "Not at all," Julian said quickly. "It's a fair question." "I have a question for you too, Julian," I continued, stepping closer. "My wife tells me you're a visionary." "That's impressive. Because usually, visionaries own the company. They don't just hold the keys for the boss." Elena looked confused. "Arthur, what are you talking about? Julian is the boss. He owns the fleet." I looked at Elena. Then I looked at Julian. The trap was set. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, feigning ignorance. "I must be confused. I thought I recognized Julian from somewhere else. Maybe the service entrance." "Arthur." Elena gasped. "That is incredibly offensive. Apologize immediately." "No need," Julian squeaked. "Really? It's fine." "It's not fine. Elena snapped. She turned to the small crowd that had gathered. My husband can be so socially awkward. He's intimidated by successful men. Julian, please, tell him about your latest acquisition. Tell him about the estate in the hills. Julian looked at me, pleading with his eyes. Please don't. I checked my watch. The Patek Philippe chimed the hour. Yes, Julian, I said softly. Tell us about the estate. The one with the gate code, what is it again? 0-4-2-9. The one I pay the mortgage on. Elena froze. What? Actually, I said, turning to the waiter and grabbing a glass of champagne. I think this calls for a toast. I tapped the glass with a spoon. Ting. 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 The room went silent. The music stopped. Hundreds of eyes turned to us. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the hall. I'd like to make an introduction. Elena hissed through her teeth. Arthur, what are you doing? Put the glass down. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing you? I asked. On the contrary, Elena. I'm elevating you. You wanted the spotlight. You wanted to introduce your visionary friend to the world. I'm just helping you make sure everyone gets the full biography. I looked at Julian. He was shaking. Visibly shaking. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. My wife, Elena, introduced this young man to me tonight as a titan of industry. A man who owns a fleet of exotic cars. A man who lives in a hilltop estate. A man of means. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. Elena smiled nervously, thinking I was offering a genuine compliment. And, I continued, my tone dropping a few degrees cooler. She is partially right. Julian is intimately involved with my fleet of cars. He is also very familiar with my estate. In fact, he spends more time there than I do. Elena's smile widened. She thought I was acknowledging his status. Because, I took a sip of champagne. Julian is my driver. The smile dropped from Elena's face. It didn't fade, it fell off. Excuse me? She whispered. Driver, I repeated, louder this time. Employee ID number 492. Annual salary, $80,000, plus benefits. And a very generous overtime package, which I assume he has been billing me for while sleeping with my wife. The crowd gasped. It was a sharp, collective intake of breath. Arthur. Elena shrieked. That is a lie. That is a disgusting, jealous lie. Julian is a billionaire. He owns the Phantom outside. I looked at Julian. Julian, I said softly. Would you like to clarify? Or should I pull up your W-2 tax forms on the big screen? Julian looked up. His eyes were wet. I work for him, Elena. Elena let go of his arm as if it were burning hot. What? I'm his driver, Julian confessed. The cars, they're his. The house, it's his. I borrowed them. Borrowed? Elena screamed. You told me you bought the Rolls-Royce last week. You told me you were taking me to your villa in Tuscany. I was going to use his frequent flyer miles, Julian mumbled. The room erupted. Laughter. Shock. Elena stood in the center of it all, stripping herself of dignity with every second. I wasn't done. I stepped closer to Julian. Now, I said. Since we have clarified the chain of command. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Julian blinked. Sir. The keys, I said, holding out my hand. The keys to the Phantom. And the keys to the Maybach. And the fob for the estate gate. Julian hesitated. He reached into his rented tuxedo pocket. His hand shook as he pulled out the heavy, leather-bound key fob with the R logo. He placed it in my hand. I closed my fingers around it. "Thank you," I said. "Now, regarding your employment status." "Arthur, please," Julian begged. I needed the job. She pursued me. She saw the car and jumped in. "You're fired, Julian," I said calmly. "For gross misconduct. And, poor judgment in character." I looked at Elena. "You're fired effective immediately. Which means the corporate card in your wallet is cancelled." "But, how will I get home?" Julian asked. "I drove the Phantom here." "I suggest you walk," I said. Julian turned and ran. He fled the hall like a fake prince fleeing the ball. I was left alone with my wife. Elena was trembling. She looked at the people around us, their eyes full of pity and disgust. She turned to me, her eyes filling with fake tears. She reached for my hands. "Arthur," she sobbed. "Oh my God. He tricked me. Did you hear him? He lied to me. I was a victim. I was trying to network for us." "You were sleeping with him to help my business?" I asked. "I wasn't sleeping with him." She lied. "We were just close." "Arthur, you have to believe me. Let's go home. Take me home." She looked at the key in my hand. She wanted to get in that car. She wanted to ride away in the luxury she felt entitled to. I looked at her hands on my suit. "You're right, Elena. This is a toxic environment. I am going home." "Good," she breathed. "Let's go." "I am going home," I corrected her. "You are staying here." She froze. "What?" "I cancelled the joint cards an hour ago, Elena. While I was waiting for you to finish flirting with my driver. I also spoke to my lawyer." "Lawyer?" "The prenuptial agreement," I reminded her. "Do you remember the infidelity clause? It's ironclad. If you cheat, you leave with what you came with." Which was a suitcase of Zara clothes and a student loan debt. "You can't do this," she hissed. "We are at a gala. The scene is over," I said. "Now comes the cleanup." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. I tucked it into the neckline of her red dress. "What is this?" she asked. "Cab fare," I said. "Although, with surge pricing, it might only get you halfway to your sister's apartment. You might have to walk the rest. Just like Julian." "Arthur!" she screamed as I turned away. "I am your wife. You can't leave me here. Everyone is watching." "I know," I said. "That's the point. You wanted to be the center of attention, Elena. Enjoy the spotlight." I walked away. The crowd parted for me. I walked out the grand doors of the museum. The valet saw me coming. He ran to the Rolls-Royce Phantom and opened the rear door. "Where is the driver, sir?" the valet asked. "I'll drive myself tonight," I said, taking the driver's seat. I started the engine. The V12 purred to life. As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Elena was standing on the steps of the museum. She was alone. The photographers were flashing their cameras in her face. She looked small. And for the first time in years, the view from my rearview mirror didn't show a ghost. It showed a free man. 3 months later. The morning sun hit the glass facade of my headquarters. I sat in my office on the 40th floor. My intercom buzzed. "Mr. Pendleton. Your 10 a.m. interview is here. For the driver position. Send him in." A young man walked in. "Good morning, sir. I'm Marcus. I have a clean record. And I know how to be discreet." I looked at him. "Marcus, do you like cars?" Yes, sir. Do you own a Rolls-Royce? He blinked. No, sir. I drive a Honda Civic. I smiled. Good. Keep it that way. I hired him on the spot. As for Elena, my lawyer handled the divorce. It was brutal. She lost everything. I saw her once, a few weeks ago. I was stopped at a red light in the back of my Maybach. She was walking out of a pawn shop. She wasn't wearing the red dress. She was wearing jeans and an old coat. She looked tired. She was counting cash in her hand. She looked up. Her eyes met mine through the tinted glass. She saw the car. She saw the life she had thrown away for a lie. Mr. Pendleton. Marcus asked from the front seat. Light is green. Shall we go? I looked at Elena one last time. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just the indifference of a stranger passing a stranger. Yes, Marcus, I said, leaning back into the leather seat. Drive on. Don't look back.